He wasn't even supposed to stop at that petrol station, but when the billionaire saw the mute girl washing his windscreen in the rain, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a photograph he had carried for 19 years. He looked at the picture, then at her face. The photograph slipped from his fingers before he whispered, "She can't be alive." But let me take you back to the beginning of that day. Chidi Okafor had built an empire by the time he turned 42. Property developments across 3 states, a name that made investors answer their phones at midnight. But on this particular Thursday morning, as his driver navigated the back roads to avoid a police checkpoint, Chidi was thinking about something his mother had said at breakfast. Stop looking backward. The dead stay dead. She had been watching him too closely lately, asking too many questions about why he never married, why he kept that old leather wallet when he could afford anything. The driver took a wrong turn somewhere past the state border, and suddenly they were pulling into a petrol station Chidi had never seen before. Small, rural, the kind of place that still used hand-pumped fuel meters. Rain was coming down hard, turning the red dirt into thick mud. While the attendant filled the tank, Chidi noticed her. A girl, thin as a whisper, maybe 18 or 19, moving between parked cars with a rag and a bucket. She was soaked through, her wrapper clung to her legs, and her head tie had come loose. The other station workers were standing under the metal awning, laughing at something. One of them, a heavyset man with a manager's badge, shouted across the lot, "Zena, you think rich people want a deaf mute's dirty hands on their cars? Stay away from the Mercedes." The girl, Zena, kept her head down and moved to a different vehicle, but Chidi could see the way her shoulders hunched, the way she made herself smaller. A woman waiting by the pump whispered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Why do they even let her work here? She's probably stealing from people's cars." Another voice, "I heard she's cursed, that's why she can't speak." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Zena kept washing cars. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't stop. She didn't look at anyone. She just kept moving, kept working, as if invisibility was the only safety she knew. Chidi's driver, Okan, rolled down the window and waved her away before she could get close. "Don't let her near the car, sir. These people, they'll claim you hit them or something." But Zena had already reached Chidi's side of the car. She held up the rag and gestured, "May I?" Her eyes were lowered, respectful, but there was something about her face that made Chidi's breath catch in his throat. He nodded. She began washing the windscreen in slow, careful circles. Rainwater mixed with soap and ran down the glass in clean streams. And that's when Chidi saw her fully through the cleared glass. The shape of her face, the small scar above her left eyebrow, the way her mouth pressed into a thin line while she concentrated. His hands started shaking. He pulled out his wallet, not for money, though he had plenty of that. He pulled out a photograph, creased and faded, that he kept tucked behind his ID. A photograph of a young woman holding a newborn baby. The woman was smiling, tired but glowing. The date written on the back, 19 years ago. The woman's name, Amara. Amara, who his mother said had died in a hospital fire. Amara, who he had loved more than anything. Amara, whose baby was supposed to have died with her. Chidi stepped out of the car into the pouring rain. His driver shouted something behind him, but he couldn't hear it over the pounding in his ears. He walked around to where Zena stood frozen, rag still in her hand, staring at this tall man in an expensive navy agbada, now soaked through and sticking to his shoulders, gold embroidery dark with water. 40 people at the petrol station stopped what they were doing. Phone cameras came up, pumps went silent. The manager stepped forward but stopped when he saw Chidi's face. Chidi held the photograph in one hand, rain hitting it, drops sliding down the woman's face in the picture. He held it up next to Zena's face with a trembling hand. Same deep-set eyes, same small scar, same mouth. The crowd pressed closer. Whispers started. Someone said, "That's Chidi Okafor, the property developer." Zena's eyes went wide with confusion and fear. She took a step back, her worn slippers splashing in a puddle. Her chest rose quickly. She looked from the photo to Chidi's face and back again, not understanding. The photograph slipped from Chidi's fingers and landed in a puddle at his feet, the woman's face blurring under the rainwater. His voice came out broken, barely louder than the rain. "She can't be alive." The manager, Emeka, pushed through the small crowd that had formed, his face going from confusion to something harder. "Oga, please, is there a problem? This girl, she didn't damage your car, did she?" But Chidi wasn't listening. He bent down, picked up the photograph and asked Zena directly, his voice stronger now. "What is your name?" She looked at Emeka. Emeka's jaw tightened. Chidi asked again, "Your name, please." Zena crouched down in the mud and used her finger to write in the wet dirt, "Zena." Chidi's knees almost gave out. He grabbed the car door to steady himself, his knuckles white. "Where is your mother?" Zena hesitated, looked at Emeka again, then wrote, "Gone." "Gone where?" She wiped the dirt clean with her palm and wrote, "Dead, 5 years." Something cracked open in Chidi's chest. Amara was dead. But this girl with Amara's face was standing right in front of him, which meant someone had lied. Someone had told him both mother and child were dead 19 years ago, when at least the child had lived. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands, pulled up his banking app. "I'm sending you 2 million naira right now. I want to help this girl. I want to—" "No need, sir." Emeka stepped between Chidi and Zena, his voice going hard, his body language shifting to something protective but territorial. "Zena is my responsibility. Her mother left her with me before she passed. I've been taking care of her. We don't need charity." "I knew her mother," Chidi said, his voice breaking. Emeka's eyes narrowed. "Many people knew many people, sir. Doesn't mean they have rights." Chidi realized he was losing this. The crowd was murmuring. His driver was pulling at his arm. He pulled out a business card and an envelope of cash he'd been carrying for a land payment, 20,000 naira. He handed both to Emeka. "If she ever needs help, call that number." Emeka took the money with one hand. Then, without breaking eye contact with Chidi, he tore the business card in half, right down the middle. Let the pieces fall into the mud between them. "We're fine, sir. Please finish your fuel and go." Chidi looked past him to Zena, who was staring at the photograph still in Chidi's hand, her eyes full of questions she couldn't ask. He wanted to take her with him then and there, but Okan was already pulling him toward the car, and the crowd was murmuring louder, and Emeka's hand was on Zena's shoulder in a way that looked protective but felt like ownership. As they drove away, Chidi watched Zena in the side mirror until she disappeared into the rain. Back in Lagos, Chidi couldn't sleep. He sat in his study with the photograph on the desk and a box of old letters in his lap. Letters from Amara. Letters that stopped 19 years ago. He remembered everything. How his mother, Adeyaze Okafor, had built their family's real estate empire from nothing after his father died. How she had refused to let him marry Amara, a girl from a poor village with no future. How he had gone to London for business school anyway, thinking time and distance would change his mother's mind. Amara had written to him when she found out she was pregnant. Chidi had been ready to come home immediately and marry her, but then his mother called. Her voice was calm, factual. There had been a fire at the hospital where Amara was being treated for pregnancy complications. Amara and the baby were both gone. The hospital had no records, everything burned. Adeyaze had already arranged the burial. "It's better this way," she had said. "You're free now." Chidi never forgave himself for not being there, for trusting his mother, for not demanding to see a body or a grave. But now he knew. Zena existed, which meant someone had lied. The next morning, Chidi hired a private investigator named Obi, short, sharp-eyed, the kind of man who found things people wanted to stay hidden. Find out everything about a girl named Zena who works at a petrol station 2 hours north, who raised her, where she went to school, why she's mute, everything. Obi came back 3 days later with a file so thin it was insulting. "Sir, this girl doesn't exist. I saw her. I'm saying legally she doesn't exist. No birth certificate, no school records, no medical history. 3 years ago, she just appeared at that station, and the manager, man named Emeka, said she was from some village. But I went to that village. No one's ever heard of her. Chidi leaned forward across his desk. About Emeka? That's the interesting part. Obi slid a bank statement across the desk. Emeka receives monthly payments from a private account, 20,000 naira, every month for the past 19 years. Chidi looked at the account number. His stomach dropped. It belonged to his mother. Chidi drove to his mother's office in Victoria Island without calling ahead. The receptionist tried to stop him, but he walked straight past her. Adeyaze was in a meeting with 2 foreign investors, but when she saw Chidi's face through the glass, she stood immediately, excused herself, and closed the door behind her.
Chidi, what's wrong? He threw the bank statement on her desk. Why are you paying Emeka? His mother didn't even blink. She walked around her desk, sat down slowly, folded her hands, and said, "So, you found the girl. You knew about her. I've always known about her." Chidi's voice cracked. "Then why did you tell me Amara and the baby died?" Adeze sighed like she was explaining something to a child who couldn't understand basic arithmetic. "Because I was protecting you. That girl, Zena, she's from Amara's village, yes. After Amara died in that shelter, her family tried to care for the child, but they couldn't manage. I heard about it through a contact. I've been paying Emeka to keep her fed, housed, and out of trouble, out of respect for you, for what Amara meant to you. You told me they were both dead. Amara is dead." She opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. Inside, hospital records, a death certificate, a letter in shaky handwriting. "This is the letter Amara wrote to you before she died. She said she didn't want you to feel trapped, that she wanted you to be free." Chidi took the letter with trembling hands. It was Amara's handwriting, the loops and curves he remembered. She said she was letting him go, that he deserved better than a poor village girl with nothing to offer, that she was sorry for the burden. His throat tightened. His mother's voice was softer now, almost gentle. "I didn't lie, Chidi. I protected you from a lifetime of guilt and obligation. That girl is being cared for. You saw her yourself. She's alive, she's working. What more could you do?" "I want the truth. The truth is that Amara made her choice, and you've built a good life." She stood and put a hand on his shoulder, her grip firm. "If you keep pursuing this, people will say you've gone mad with grief. They'll say you're seeing connections that aren't there. And that girl? They'll tear her apart trying to prove she's running a scam. Is that what you want?" Chidi left his mother's office with the folder. He wanted to believe her, but something felt wrong. Then Obi called 2 days later. His voice was different, urgent. "Sir, you need to see this." He arrived at Chidi's house after dark with a manila envelope. "I followed Zena like you asked. She meets with a man in the city twice a month. I thought you should know before you get in too deep." The photographs showed Zena with a man in his 30s outside a bank. He was handing her an envelope. She was counting money, nodding. It looked transactional, cold. "Who is he?" "I don't know yet, but it looks like she's part of something. A scam, maybe. Find a rich man, pretend to be his long-lost relative, collect money, disappear." Chidi felt the floor drop out from under him. Had he imagined it? Had he wanted so badly to believe Amara's child was alive that he'd convinced himself this girl was her? He told Obi to stop investigating. That night, Chidi sat in his study and stared at the photograph of Amara. He almost threw it away. Almost. But then a package arrived the next morning. No return address, no note. Just a padded envelope left at his gate. Inside, a sealed letter, yellowed with age, addressed to Chidi in Amara's handwriting. The postmark was 19 years old, 1 week before Amara supposedly died. His hands shook so badly he could barely tear it open. "Chidi, I'm writing this from a hospital I won't name because they're watching me.
Your mother came with 2 men 3 days ago. She says if I keep this baby, she'll destroy my family. She'll take our land. She'll get my brother fired. She's offering me money to leave Lagos and never contact you again. But I won't take it. I'm keeping our daughter. I'm naming her Zena, after your grandmother. I'm leaving the hospital tonight. I don't know where I'll go, but I'll find somewhere safe. If you read this, it means I got this letter out. If you never read this, it means she won." The letter ended there, torn at the edge like someone had ripped it away from something else. Chidi sat until dawn, holding the letter, and realized his mother wasn't protecting him. She had been hunting Amara. Chidi went back to the petrol station the next day, but Zena was gone. The other workers pretended not to know her. Emeka was nowhere to be found. Finally, a young attendant pulled Chidi aside. "The girl left 2 days ago. Emeka took her somewhere. I don't know where, but I heard him on the phone saying something about the church up north." Chidi drove to the village Amara had originally been from. He asked at the market, at the school. Finally, an old woman selling groundnuts pointed him towards a small house at the edge of the village, half hidden by overgrown grass. Inside, he found Kachi, Amara's younger brother, now blind, sitting in a wooden chair by an empty window. "I know who you are," Kachi said, before Chidi could introduce himself. "You're the man Amara loved, the one whose mother destroyed her." Chidi's throat tightened.
Kachi told him everything. Amara had survived the hospital. She'd come home with baby Zena, terrified but determined. For a year, she managed. She worked, she kept her head down, but then Adaeze's men came. They didn't touch anyone. They didn't need to. They burned Amara's house while she and Zena were at the market. They paid the local chief to accuse Amara's family of stealing church offerings. They spread rumors through the village that Amara had cursed a man who'd refused to marry her, and that's why she'd had a child out of wedlock. Within a month, the whole village had turned on them. No one would sell them food. No one would hire Amara for work. Children threw stones at Zena. "My sister had a breakdown," Kachi said, his voice breaking. She stopped speaking. Just stopped. She'd open her mouth and nothing would come out. And Zena, watching her mother suffer like that, she learned that speaking only brings pain. The girl stopped talking too. Where's Amara now? She died 5 years ago, in a church shelter 2 hours north. Pneumonia. No money for medicine. No family to care for her. Kachi's blind eyes turned toward Chidi. "I thought Zena died with her. But if you saw her, if she's alive, where is this shelter?" "There's a pastor named Obina. He runs a place for women no one else will take. If Zena's anywhere, she's there." Chidi was about to leave when his phone buzzed. A message from Obi. "We need to talk. In person. It's about your mother." They met in a parking garage downtown. Obi looked nervous, kept looking over his shoulder. "Sir, I need to tell you something I should have said from the beginning. Your mother, she paid me." Chidi went very still. "She paid me to feed you false information. Those photos of Zena with the man? Staged. The man works for your mother's company. She wanted you to think Zena was a con artist so you'd stop looking." "Why are you telling me now?" "Because tonight she asked me to do something I can't do." Obi's voice dropped. "She wants me to make sure Zena disappears permanently. She didn't say kill, but she didn't have to." Chidi's blood went cold. "Where is Zena?" "I already moved her somewhere safe first, before I told my mother I'd do it. A church shelter, Pastor Obina's place. I wasn't going to hurt her, sir, I swear. But your mother, she's not going to stop." Chidi drove through the night and reached the shelter just as the sun was coming up. It was a simple compound, a small church with a tin roof, a few rooms for women who had nowhere else to go, a garden. He found Zena in the garden, pulling weeds, her hands covered in dirt. When she saw him, she stood up afraid. She took 3 steps back. "I'm not here to hurt you." Chidi held up his hands, showing he had nothing. He pulled out the photograph and Amada's letter. "I need you to hear something.
Please." A woman appeared in the doorway of the church, late 30s, nurse's uniform, sharp eyes. She stepped between Chidi and Zena. "Who are you?" she asked. "My name is Chidi Okafor. I knew Zena's mother." A lot of men say they knew women when they want something from their daughters. Leave. "Please, I just need someone to translate for her. I have proof." "I don't care what you have." The woman crossed her arms. "Rich men with proof have hurt every woman in this compound. You're no different." Chidi looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't backing down. "What's your name?" "Neka. I'm a nurse here. I've been taking care of Zena since she arrived 3 days ago. And before you ask, yes, I knew her mother." Chidi's heart stopped. "You knew Amada?" "I worked at the shelter where she died. I held her hand on her last night." Neka's voice was hard. "So don't come here with your expensive clothes and your sad story, expecting me to hand this girl over to you." "I'm not trying to take her. I'm trying to help her." "That's what they all say." Neka started to turn away, but Chidi spoke quickly. "Amada named her daughter after my grandmother, Zena. She wrote me a letter 19 years ago that I never received until 3 days ago. My mother told me they were both dead. She lied. She's been lying for 19 years, and now she's trying to make Zena disappear." Neka stopped, turned slowly. "What did you say?" "My mother, Adaeze Okafor. She's the one who destroyed Amada's life." Something shifted in Neka's face. "Come inside." They sat in the small church office, Zena between them. Neka translated everything Chidi said into sign language, slow, patient, making sure Zena understood every word. Chidi told her everything, who her mother was, what had happened, who he was. Zena's face went through a dozen emotions: confusion, disbelief, grief, anger, before tears started rolling down her face. She signed something. Neka translated. She says her mother told her that her father was a good man who didn't know she was alive. She said if she ever met him, she should forgive him.
Chidi's eyes filled with tears. "What do you want? I can give you education, safety, a place in my family. Anything." Zena wiped her eyes, signed again. Neka translated, her voice softer now. She says she wants people to know her mother's name. Chidi nodded. "Then that's what we'll do." But Neka held up a hand. "Not so fast. You've told her a story. That doesn't mean I trust you." "What do you need?" "I need to know you're not going to use this girl for your own guilt, then abandon her when it gets inconvenient. I need to know you're not going to take her into your family and let your mother destroy Amara the way she destroyed Amara." "My mother won't touch her. I'll make sure." "How? You didn't even know what your mother did for 19 years. What makes you think you can stop her now?" The question hung in the air. Chidi didn't have an answer. Neka stood. "You want to help Zena, then prove your mother did what you say she did. Bring me evidence, real evidence, not just letters and stories." "I have bank records, payments from my mother to the man who was hiding Zena." "That's a start, but it's not enough. Bring me something that proves your mother destroyed Amara's life intentionally. Then we'll talk about what happens next." Chidi spent the next week gathering everything he could. He went back to Obi and got copies of every payment his mother had made. He tracked down the hospital where Amara had given birth and found a nurse who remembered her and remembered the 2 men who'd come asking questions about her. He went back to Amara's village and recorded Kachi's testimony. But it still wasn't enough. Everything was circumstantial, old, unprovable in court. Then he got a visitor. Barrister Okonkwo, his mother's personal lawyer, the man who handled every dirty deal Adaeze had made for 30 years. Chidi almost didn't let him in, but something about the way Okonkwo stood at the door, tired, gray, smaller than Chidi remembered, made him pause. "I'm dying," he said simply.
Cancer. 3 months, maybe less. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here to set something right before I go. He handed Chidi a folder. Inside, the real hospital records from 19 years ago showing Amara admitted with pregnancy complications and discharged alive 3 days later. A signed confession from a nurse who'd been paid to lie about a fire that never happened. Bank records showing Adeze's payments to Emeka, Obi, and 5 other people over 19 years. And a recorded conversation, Adeze's voice clear as day, telling Okonkwo to make sure the girl and her family understand that speaking about this will cost them everything. Why are you giving this to me? Okonkwo looked old, tired. Your mother did terrible things. She did them because she believed she was protecting you from poverty and scandal. I helped her because I was paid well to help her, but I'm dying now, and I don't want to take this weight with me. Where is Zena now? She's safe, but your mother knows where she is. It's only a matter of time. Chidi took the evidence to Aneka. She read through everything twice. Her hands were shaking by the end. She looked at Zena, who was sitting in the corner of the room, watching them. This is real, Aneka said quietly. I know. Your mother destroyed an entire life. For what? Control? I don't know. I'm not sure she even knows anymore. Aneka stood up, walked to the window. What are you going to do? I want to take Zena home, protect her, give her the life she should have had. And your mother? I'll deal with her. Aneka turned. That's not good enough. You deal with her quietly, and Zena spends the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, wondering if your mother will come back. No. If you're going to do this, you do it publicly. You make sure everyone knows what your mother did. You make sure Zena is protected by the truth, not by your money. Chidi stared at her. You're asking me to destroy my mother. I'm asking you to choose your mother's reputation or Zena's future. The room was silent. Zena signed something. Aneka translated. She says she doesn't want anyone to suffer because of her, not even your mother. But Chidi shook his head. No, Aneka is right. The only way you're safe is if everyone knows the truth. Over the next few days, Chidi and Aneka worked together. She knew the legal system. She knew how to document abuse. She knew how to build a case that would protect Zena even if Adeze tried to retaliate. And somewhere in those long nights, sitting across from each other in the church office, going through papers and making plans, something shifted. Aneka asked him once, late at night, "Why didn't you come back for Amara when you found out she was pregnant?" "I was going to, but my mother called before I could book a flight. She told me they were dead. I believed her."
Why did you believe her? Because she's my mother. Because I couldn't imagine she would lie about something like that. Neka looked at him for a long time. You're not that naive anymore. No, I'm not. She reached across the table and put her hand on his, just for a moment. Good. Zena needs you clear-eyed, not guilty. 3 weeks later, Chidi stood in front of 200 people at a memorial service for Amada. He'd invited everyone, extended family, business partners, society figures, everyone his mother had built her reputation with. Adeze was sitting in the back row, her face unreadable. Zena stood beside Chidi at the front, wearing a simple blue dress Neka had helped her pick out. She looked terrified, but she didn't leave. Neka stood on her other side, one hand resting gently on Zena's shoulder. Chidi spoke. 19 years ago, I loved a woman named Amara. She was kind, brilliant, and brave. She didn't die from illness. She died from cruelty. She died because someone with power decided her life didn't matter. He told the whole story, everything. He showed Amada's letter on a screen behind him. He showed the bank records. He played the recording of his mother's voice. The room went silent. "This is Zena," Chidi said, his voice steady now. "She is my daughter, not by my choice 19 years ago, but by love now. Her mother was destroyed not by violence, but by power used cruelly. She was erased, made invisible, made silent. And I'm here today to ask one thing. Remember her name, Amara. A woman who loved her child more than her own life. A woman who survived 19 years of cruelty, only to die forgotten." He looked directly at his mother. "I'm not calling for arrests. I'm not asking for revenge. But I'm asking that we remember what cruelty looks like when it wears expensive clothes and good intentions." 3 people stood up and walked out immediately, but 70 people stayed, and when Chidi finished speaking, more than half of them were crying. Adaze sat frozen in her seat. Her face was stone. She didn't leave. She didn't speak. She just sat there as person after person walked past her on their way out, their faces full of judgment. In the weeks that followed, Adaze didn't go to jail. The evidence was old. Some of it couldn't be prosecuted. But she lost something worse than freedom. Her business partners pulled out of deals. Her invitations to society events stopped coming. Her own siblings stopped answering her calls. The company board asked her to step down. The empire she had built started to crack. Chidi took over the company. He made Zena a legal heir. He enrolled her in university with a full-time sign language interpreter. He set up a foundation in Amada's name that helped women and children who had been cast out by their families. And Nneka? She stayed. Not at the shelter. She moved to Lagos to help run the foundation. Chidi and Nneka worked side by side, and slowly, carefully, something grew between them that neither of them had expected. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't sudden. It was quiet and real and built on shared purpose. 6 months after the memorial, Zena asked Nneka in sign language if she was in love with Chidi. Nneka signed back, "I think so. Is that okay?" Zena smiled and signed, "Mama would have liked you." A year later, Chidi stood with Zena at the opening of a new community center. The sign above the door read, "Amada's Place, a shelter for the forgotten." Zena had grown into herself over the year. She stood straighter now. She smiled more. She was studying business at university and wanted to help run the foundation when she graduated. Chidi asked her, through her interpreter, if she was angry that justice hadn't been louder. No jail time, no courtroom drama. Zena typed on her phone and showed him. "My mother spent her whole life silent and invisible. Now everyone knows her name. That's louder than any prison sentence." The doors opened. Women and children started arriving. Some were running from abusive families. Some had been accused of witchcraft. Some had just been forgotten. Zena greeted each one at the door, Nneka beside her, showing them where to go.